What's up, everyone? Welcome to Natural Languages and welcome to a new interview of the Language Input podcast. And today I'm going to have Khoudir on the podcast from Algeria, and he's going to tell us about, his experience learning languages and teaching languages himself, teaching English in Algeria. He's going to tell us about trying to spread the word about comprehensible input in his country and many more things, many more interesting things. And yeah, so with that being said, let's get right into the episode and hope you enjoy it. Let's go. Right. So hi, Khoudir.
Hi.
And welcome to the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me on your podcast. I look forward to talking to your audience, and we'll hope it will be a fruitful episode.
Yeah, I'm sure about that. And you're coming from Algeria. I love to have experiences from people from different cultures and different countries and so on. So basically, we all see that we might think there's a difference between cultures when it comes to languages, but probably in every country in the world, the traditional grammar approach is the most dominant, right? And
yeah.
Anyway, so just tell us a little bit about your story, especially when it comes to your experience with languages as a language student, a language learner yourself, whatever comes to your mind.
Okay. My story with English is a bit different, I think, than most people and than most students and teachers. Actually, in school, in middle school and high school, I used I was good. I was good in English when it comes to language learning in class. Until high school, it was always the same, but not just with English, also with French. But then in high school, I started watching movies. But bear in mind that I was the good student in class, I was the top student in class in English as well in French. But then when I started watching movies, and then I realized I couldn't understand anything. And in most movies, you realize that they use basic English. I'm not talking about academic language or discussing topics that are very specialized. So, but I realized that something is wrong. I started because I was studying grammar. I was writing on my notebooks, writing sentences, doing everything I can. I mean, language learning. When you do language learning, and then I found one day I was just browsing on the internet, surfing the internet, and then I found I was going something, just looking for something. I don't remember what it was, but from one website to another, because I'm not here, not in our culture, but in Algeria. I mean, most people who share links on the website, but not just in Algeria, most countries, I guess, they take you from one place to another, especially with the ads. You have to maneuver your way to the link. So I stumbled upon an English teacher who goes by the name A.J. Hall. He's very famous worldwide. So I downloaded the first thing. I just looked, and then I found some of his lessons. I started listening to them, and since then, my experience with English changed. It was changed to it was taken to another level. And then from him, I've come to know TPRS. So for the rest of my years in high school, it was just 3 years, but I discovered A.J. Hogg, I guess, in second year. And at the same time, I was watching movies, but I couldn't understand anything that they were saying. So I was struggling understanding movies, even though I was getting the good grades in English. And then I started listening to him, and in 1 year. Not in 1 year, in less than a year, I guess in maybe 6 months, my English got so way much better. So that's for high school, and then in university, when I got to university, I enrolled in a school, teacher's school, teachers preparatory college, we call it, or ENS, École Normale Supérieure.
Okay.
So I started like there as a student, as to become a student teacher, I guess they call it. And then in my experience, like, as a student in university, I said to myself, since I'm going to be a teacher, I had a good teacher, A.J. Hogue. Why not go back to his lessons and try to understand how he was teaching? And then I remember that he talked about CPRS in one of his lessons. So, and then since then, like, I guess in second year, I guess, so it was 5 years. In second year, I've discovered, and I went back to his lessons, and then I listened to one of his lessons on CPRS. And from then now until now, I'm always just teaching using TPRS, because I know it is the way that worked for me, and I'm sure it will work with so many people. I had one experience with one student. For one summer, I taught him using TPRS. I guess I remember for only 3 days, and I told him about A.J. Hogue, and I totally forgot about him, and I didn't see him like for a year. And one day on Messenger, he contacted me on Messenger. He said, "Hi, hello." I actually forgot him. And then I asked him, "Who are you?" He said, I can't mention his name, but I remember that he was my student. I couldn't actually, the way he wrote the messages, the way he spoke, I thought he was a teacher. I actually thought, I told him, I said to him that I thought you were actually a teacher, but because, just in 1 year, imagine how you could get so much better in just 1 year. And that actually made me believe much more in TPRS and CIA teaching in general.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, I keep talking about it, but it's not a magic formula that we came up with. It's just the same way we all acquire our native language, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And yeah, I have a couple of questions about, like, you mentioned A.J. Hogue's lessons. So his lessons, were they about, did he use storytelling or cultural videos, or what type of lessons were they?
Yeah, I guess 90% of his lessons are stories.
Okay.
Yeah, he does stories, and then he asks a lot of questions, circling about the story that he discussed, or maybe sometimes he makes a new story using the keywords that he highlighted in the original text, and then he would start to asking a lot of questions, as it is in circling.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, a lot of stories overall. Okay. Yeah, and when you mentioned that after 6 months of watching his videos and so on, that you could feel your English was much better. But
yeah,
are you referring to your ability to understand, or?
Not my ability to understand. I guess, yeah. First you learn to understand. That's most. I guess all learners of English say that to some extent they can understand what they are hearing and listening, and also reading. But the issue the biggest issue for them is speaking.
Of course.
Yeah, but for me with A.J. Hogue, I started like speaking, even though when I was listening to his lessons. Actually, we were like 3 friends meeting for I guess an hour and a half, or sometimes 2 hours every day, except for the weekend, for 3 months. All we did was just listen and read his stories, and we did very little of speaking. We didn't do much speaking. It was just listening and reading.
Right.
We would do just some listening when we part ways, and so just sometimes I accompany my friend to his house, and on the way we speak a little bit in English. But I guess my ability of speaking English arose from that listening to his lessons.
Right. Yeah, that's how it works. You listen and read, you understand the message, and your ability to communicate will eventually show up.
Yeah, exactly. I guess the best thing about him, not just about him, I mean, the natural way to acquire language. As a teacher, you have to make it less stress-free. You have to provide stress-free experiences for your student, so that they could speak, they could start speaking without worrying about the errors and mistakes and sounding fluent or native. No, just make it you have to make it you have to make them feel that it's you have to make them in the state of flow, like I'm sure you are, in this state, so that they could just communicate easily and spontaneously and without thinking about the grammar and all the details of the language, so that later when they want to speak they could speak. But because I guess the thing about most students is not that they cannot speak, they are afraid to speak, they can't speak. It doesn't matter how they speak, they would surely make mistakes, but at the end they could speak. But they are always listening and reading, and that's how their speaking will get much better. I'm sure they will not worry about the mistake. They will not even notice those mistakes because they are natural mistakes, like natural errors. They're not something they can control. It's out of their control.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just how it works. But we adults are so used to the traditional grammar way that we're always thinking about, when someone makes a mistake, we're always thinking about correcting that person, and which is, an error in itself, obviously, because
exactly.
I keep asking people, like, how do you feel when you're being corrected, right? Because when you're trying to speak in a foreign language and other people, native speakers, are constantly correcting you, you become afraid of speaking.
Exactly.
One, and two, you start focusing on form once again, as opposed to focusing on meaning, which is the most important thing, right? On communicating, on the message. It's just like a whole vicious circle,
Exactly, yeah.
You make a mistake, which is completely normal. People correct your mistake. You feel afraid of speaking. You focus on form. It's just a nightmare, right?
Yeah, exactly. You would start with the whole language, and then they point to that one mistake, and then it's just like they shut you down, and then they left only one door for you to speak, like to speak in a correct way. Otherwise, you have to use this form correctly. Otherwise, you are not a good speaker. You are a terrible learner. They may not say this to you, but most of the time you would feel it. And I know maybe some teachers will even say it, like you are a bad learner. They would, if they don't say it in speaking, you would see it in your grade, like using red markers and writing like you have to work harder, or what were you doing in my classes, like something like that.
Yeah, but we all know what those classes mean. I mean, what those grades mean. Like, you remember your days when you said you were a pretty good student when it comes to the approach, but you just couldn't understand the movies. And I myself perfectly remember being able to pass any grammar exam, but just not being able to speak the language at all. And there's so many. I mean, the case.
Like, yeah, there was a case for me in university. We had like a grammar module. So in that grammar, it was pure grammar, like for 1 hour or an hour and a half. And most of the time, I never paid attention to anything that the teacher was saying. Sometimes we just passed papers and we would just read the rules and read some sentences, examples. But again, when we take the grammar exam, like it was an hour and a half grammar exam, a grammar test, if you will. So, and then I usually get, not always, but I usually get the best mark in grammar. But when I don't even study the rules. When I take the test, I answer with whatever seemed normal, seemed correct, and seemed right for me. And if I get stuck sometimes, and then I would try to remember the rule, which I actually rarely did. So I usually go with what sounded natural.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the crazy thing, that even for grammar tests, learning the language or acquiring the language the right way, it's even going to help you more than consciously preparing for that grammar exam. It's just that crazy because of that feeling of correctness that we've been talking about several times, that you develop in your native language, right?
And the problem, I guess, with this, we have grown impatient in our classes, like with our students. We have in each class, in each session, we have to see the result by the end of the lesson. Yeah. With language acquisition, especially when it comes to grammar, in language acquisition, like the natural way, you might not see it. At least it depends on the competency you are focusing on. But some aspects of language are late acquired, so you may not see until like later years. So, but then your measure of success is at the end of each lesson what they could do at the end of the lesson, exactly. Which is, I guess, for most teachers it is very restraining and restricting for most teachers, and even for students, they would grow impatient to see the result. I did this, I have to see the result. I did this, I have to see the result. So, for them to take that leap of faith and then jump to CI as a teacher, and even jump to listening and doing focusing on comprehension as a student, it takes, I guess, it's very difficult for them because they are used to seeing results, like as Stephen Krashen calls it, like gratification, something like that, delayed gratification. Yeah. So with language acquisition, the downside of language acquisition, you may not see the results. Especially if you are like result-oriented, like you want to see, not oriented, like you are result-focused, you have to see the result at each lesson. I guess it would be difficult for you. So that's the thing with TPRS and CI. It's totally different when it comes to philosophy and approach. At first, to understand a lot of things like basic and principles, and then jump into teaching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a subconscious process, right? So
exactly, yeah.
Like you said, when it comes to grammar, you go to a grammar class and learn a new rule or memorize XYZ vocabulary. At the end of the lesson, you feel like you've improved. You feel like you've learned something new, right? And you might be able to recall it at the end of the lesson. The problem is 2 days later, you don't even remember that, right? But again, if you look at kids, we're patient with kids with the native language. I mean, like, parents keep talking to their kids, and they start speaking when they're 1.5 years old, or as long as it takes them. But for some reason, we trust the process when it comes to kids and the native language, but we don't with adults, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Thinking that they're different processes.
Yeah. I mean, for adults, they have like the advantage. They have an advantage over kids because they have another language, like they could refer to. For example, if they can't understand something, you could like show it to them using gestures, CPR, and even you can resort to their native language. Mm-hmm. So I guess if it takes like 2 years for a kid to speak, I guess for an adult it would take much less.
Yeah. I mean, the point is, with kids, we keep talking to them despite them not speaking yet, because that's the process, right?
And most of the time, they don't care what you are saying.
Obviously.
Yeah. They are just taking it like naturally.
Yeah, they're getting the input, but they're just there. They're present there, and
they are playing, not even paying attention to the language. I mean, in the way that we ask our students to pay attention in classes, but they in 1.5 years, like you said, they start speaking. In 5 years, they are natives, like in speaking.
Yeah, just whenever they feel they're ready. And I was thinking about this as well, like just now, because I was going to say that when kids make a mistake, we don't care. But I think parents do care, and they try to correct them. But the difference is kids, they don't have the ability to, how to put it into words, to consciously control the process, if that makes sense. They're not aware of things. Like, so when we adults make a mistake and people try to correct us, we start, we become afraid of speaking, we start wondering, we start hesitating. But kids, they don't have that ability yet because they're not aware of that process, if you will. Yeah. So even though their parents are trying to correct their mistakes, they don't care and they keep talking, whatever they feel like, So yeah, because I was just thinking about that. But the funny thing with adults as well is, if you pay attention, when you make a mistake in a foreign language and people try to correct you, most times you perfectly know what the mistake you made. Like, you made a mistake and the right way, the right form. It's just that in real time, you just don't have time to think about it, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So what's the point of trying to correct someone by telling them what the mistake was when they themselves already perfectly know what the mistake was? They just weren't able to produce it the right way in real time because they're just two different processes again. So it's just a nightmare.
I remember in one of my classes, I was like doing CPRS, and then we were creating a story, and then I was asking them a lot of questions using, for example, I would say like, David is happy. Why? Who is happy? They would say David. And then I say, is David happy or is Jean is happy? And then in one of the answers where the answer should be David is happy, they would say David is happy. They would say David happy, without saying is. And then I asked them, why don't you use is? I'm not asking them like to punish them or like just to make them realize something. And then I say to him, you have the conjugation of the verb to be. Why not use it? I'm asking them just to make a point that you can't control this. You just have to listen, and you just have to listen and read and understand anything that you're saying, and later you will get the full package, like the whole language. But now don't focus on those function words. They are not important. What's important is the meaning-bearing words, like David, happy. Even is here is a verb, but it's not as important as the other words. So I've had so many times with my students where I don't teach them grammar. I always tell them, I cannot teach you grammar. I don't want to teach you grammar. I hate grammar. In fact, I used to teach grammar. I love grammar, but not as something to teach, just something I just like it.
Yeah.
As most of the times I would just give them an example. I give them an example just to make them realize that grammar is not, at least in the beginner level, it's not as important as it seems, like as it is in most classes.
Yeah.
It is important if you have time. It is important if you have time to write, and if you have time, if you are with someone who is patient with you, waiting for you to pronounce, to get everything correctly, which is never the case.
Yeah, I think it's not that grammar is not important, but the thing is, we don't need to consciously study it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So we develop the language rules, but on our own, like our brains, fortunately, without having to consciously study them. Back to that feeling of correctness when you listen to your native language or other languages, you're like, it just doesn't sound right? So we're not saying grammar is not important. All we're saying is you don't need to consciously study, which is excellent news in my view. But I want to ask you about that example that you mentioned. So you mean that they perfectly understood what you were talking about, that David was happy, right?
Yeah.
But they just, the way for them to answer your question was to say David happy, right?
Yeah.
Which you as the teacher perfectly understood what they meant, right?
Yeah.
And it's like that's an important point, because sometimes teachers, we want them to I mean, it's back to the same idea, but we wanted to say the precise sentence, like, David is happy, but sorry, I would even say that in that case, you probably were curious about why they didn't use that, right? Or why sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But I think we don't even need to tell them, you need to use a verb here, right? Because they're just replying whatever tools they have to make you realize that they understood what you said.
Yeah, exactly.
And all they need is to listen to those specific structures many times, and what's the word? Like automatically they'll say David's happy in the future. We're just always trying to consciously control the process, we adults, I mean, and it's just not the way it works,
And the best thing about CPRS is when you are teaching, not just CPRS, I mean, other CI-based approaches, is that in trainings, in their books, in their workshops, they always first give you a taste of how it feels to be a student in the CPR class, and then teach you about like the principles, like the 5 hypotheses of correction, which I think are the backbone of the CI-based approaches. When I'm teaching, I'm always like aware of what's happening in the class. When they make mistakes, I know they are making mistakes. I don't like punish them for them. I make them feel that don't worry, don't ask me if you have a question about grammar. It's okay to ask me, but don't obsess over like grammar. We always have that a period of time, like most of the time it's maybe 5 minutes a class, even less sometimes, where you just point to some grammar points, just like to satisfy those students who are like obsessed with the grammar. But I guess most students don't even care about it, and they usually come from classes where they were traumatized by the way they were punished for not getting grammar points correctly. So in my classes, I always, not just in my classes, in most CI-based classes, as a student, you feel like you are home. You are learning your native language all over again, but with other people, and in a very fun and exciting way. So it is the journey here it is the journey, the flow that enables the students to love the language in order to continue studying it on their own, and also to actually acquire the language in the right way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like you as a teacher, in your mind, you know what's going on, you know where they're making mistakes, but you don't need to let them know. So what I mean is, you pay attention to what specific structures they're making mistake on. And the way to sort of fight that is for you to use those structures more often, even, or not even that, just keep doing what you're doing and trust that sooner or later they're going to get them right. But as opposed to let them know that they made a mistake, just pay attention to it in your mind and use those structures more often if you can,
exactly
in the flow of the story later in the future. And yeah, I want to ask you about, I was thinking about those 5-minute quick grammar things that you talked about, because I'm personally, I'm completely radical when it comes to that. Like, I don't like teaching grammar at all. Like, no,
it is the case for me. I didn't want to seem like as a teacher who hates it.
I know.
Most of my grammar, how to put it in words, is most of my time with grammar in class is just showing them why you shouldn't study grammar. That's the case for me. I teach them a grammar, and then I make them aware that it's hard to study grammar. You don't need grammar, especially the way it is presented in most textbooks.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I interrupted you.
No. It's not about your experience. It's like, because sometimes I hear about terms like the pop-up grammar thing and things like that, and I think when even those little pieces, when you give them grammar consciously, I mean, they feel satisfied because your mind, your conscious mind, loves to be in control. So you have that information, but in the end, I think you're not helping them because you're making them focus on form, which is not the right way to do it, right? And back to your point about storytelling and so on, is the reason why it's so effective is you're creating fun stories, you're playing games or whatever you're doing, and the most important thing is the message communication. So they're enjoying that. But that communication story game happens to be in the language that they want to learn. And ideally, they even forget that they're listening to a different language. And that's your job as a teacher, right? To make it comprehensible. So they don't need to be paying attention to form, right? Because if they understand what you're saying, eventually they're going to forget they're listening to a different language because they're so immersed in the story or the game or whatever it is. That, back to your point, they feel like they're back to their baby days and just acquiring the native language. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I guess for language, language is a way of communication. It is a means, not an end. Mm-hmm. Now we are talking English. My native language, it's not English. But I totally forgot that I'm speaking to you in another language. Right. I'm not even thinking of the words. I may think of the correct, not like the proper words used, but I'm not worried about the grammar. So whatever I'm saying, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing words correctly, and maybe I'm making some mistakes. I don't know. Until later, maybe if I will rewatch later this episode, I will realize that I made some mistakes, and sometimes I'm sure I will feel bad, but I wouldn't care anyway because I know I cannot control it. But I can control my experiences with language. So back to the point of language being an and in class or whatever you do as a teacher or especially as a student, a learner in general, always make the language you are learning, make it don't focus on it as an and, make it focus on it as a means. So for me, for example, I'm very excited, I'm very enthusiastic about technology and IT and this sort of stuff. So I watch like hundreds of courses in English. So because when I'm watching them in English, I'm only focused on what the instructor is doing, and when he's explaining something or how to do something, I'm following the cursor on his screen, and then I'm listening to him. And of course, there would be some words that I wouldn't understand, but that experience, him like controlling the cursor, going places in the screen, my brain will pick up all the not the weak spot, the words that I didn't get. Maybe not the first time, but I will get those words like percentage, maybe 10% the first time, the next time 50%, depends on the context. Yeah. So that later, I mean, here the point is, language is a means, not an end. So whatever you do with the language, you want to learn it, make it a means, not an end. Because when you focus on it as an end, you start to worry about the grammar. You want to control everything you're doing in language, but you cannot control it because it is subconscious and very, very abstract and complex.
Oh yeah, yeah. It is. You're interested in the topic, and that
exactly,
topic, and that video book happens to be in English in this case. Or you're interested in communicating with other people, you're interested in playing a game, whatever it is. And that game, book, video happens to be in English. Yeah. And did you learn any other language in school, high school? Do you have any other experience? Like with French, for example, in Algeria or
Yeah, here in schools we start learning French in primary school, third year, I think. For us it was fourth year, but now it's they started on third year. So from third year primary school until third year high school, like the final year of high school. I guess it is the same experience for me, especially when it comes to English, with the slight differences that in French, not just in French, in both languages. If the teacher, sometimes you have, sometimes I had like some terrible teachers. I don't remember anything from their classes because when I have a bad teacher, it's just not a bad teachers in the way that they don't know how to teach. They are mean teachers. Mean teachers. Sometimes you have those. So I just like switch off, and like a whole year goes blank. I don't remember anything. But when I have a good teacher, I just go along with him or with her, because, as I said, because I was interested in school at that time. So whatever came my way, I just took it. If it came from a good teacher, of course.
But I guess it was mostly traditional grammar approach as well.
Not mostly, it was just grammar that I don't remember like having a good teacher, like not a good teacher. I mean, they were good teachers in their ways.
Bad approach.
Yeah, in that approach, I mean, they were good teachers. I liked them, but I wasn't aware of their process. I didn't know anything about CI. I was focused on grammar, like being the good student in class. But for me, for example, French, I don't remember studying French since high school. So whatever French I use now is French that I learned in class and maybe some French that I picked up from some movies and series, TV series, that's all. But English was, I guess it's now, I've been learning it for 7 years and acquiring it for 10 years. Yeah, now.
Yeah, with English, I guess you felt it was more, not important, but useful, right, in your life. So you stuck with it, right? And you kept watching things in English and
exactly, yeah. French for us, French here in Algeria, the second language is French. But now people are coming to realize that it's not as important as it seemed, as it was like advertised, like. Yeah. So now most students are like more focused in English, mostly because French, I guess now is it's in Algeria. It is the second language, but when it comes to English, you cannot compare it to English, because most of film movies, most of the it's everywhere. That's what I mean. English is everywhere. So, and French, it's more for us. It's more usually in schools and in administrations. Sometimes not in movies, but in movies if you watch like national TV here in Algeria. But English, compared to English, English is everywhere. That's why now most students are switching to English.
Right. Yeah, makes sense. And there's a question I'm always curious is, when you first started learning French or English, how do you go about learning the alphabet? Because I'm asking because, I'm from Spain. So when I first started learning second languages, it was, same thing. It was English and French for the most part. But again, for me, it was the same alphabet, just a different language, right? So I didn't have that extra layer of difficulty, if you will.
Yeah.
So how was it for you? Because you're used to, and to Arabic, right? To the different alphabet, and
yeah.
So how do they go about it? Like the traditional way. And do you know of any Arabic teacher or how do you teach the English yourself?
When it comes to alphabets, I don't remember how it was taught, but I can tell you how it is taught now. I mean, when I started teaching, I had to teach using like I didn't really have to, but like you are always like asked to stick to the curriculum. You may have some freedom to to teach a different way, but the curriculum stays the same. You cannot change it. But I guess the way it is taught now, and I guess it is the same, like when I was a student. I guess it is like it is as it is presented in most textbooks. They would first write the letters on the board, and then you read, the whole class reads all the letters, and then they copy them on their copybooks. And they may have some exercises to highlight some letters. And for me, actually, I don't teach it at all. Especially if I have freedom, I don't teach it at all. Even if you can imagine, I can speak English now. I would say fluently. In university, in some letters in the alphabet, I was not aware. I did not know how they were pronounced. Maybe I studied them, but I forgot. For example, the Q. I never knew it was pronounced Q as a letter. I know, for example, the X. I thought it was X, like in French. I guess even in Spanish. So, but yet I could speak freely with no issues when it comes to the letters, because the word is made up of letters, not the letters. The words, you pronounce the whole word, you don't pronounce the letters.
Yeah.
But sometimes I like the way it is presented in CPRS, because sometimes you write a new letter, and then you have them spell it. It doesn't take more than 10 seconds. So for me, the way I would teach it now. I guess it's been a long time since I taught it, because most of the time I taught adults, and the classes, I remember the last time I taught the alphabet was in 2016.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's almost 7 years now. So I don't 6 years. But now the way I would teach it, I wouldn't teach it. Even the word "teach" is wrong here. But I just go with the stories, and sometimes when I present a new word, I just I spell it for them, and I ask them to spell it. That's how they just do it in my classes. Okay, but so as a student, I have no recollection as to how it was taught to me.
Yeah, I guess I'm curious about. So when you're creating a story with your students, do you write things down, just specific words, or I guess you? Because my point is, when I'm teaching Spanish to English speakers, or if I'm teaching English to Spanish speakers, I can always write things down to help them understand what I'm talking about, because of the similarities between languages. That some words are similar, but I guess you have to rely more on gestures, pictures, and so on. Or do you write words in English at all, or depending on their level?
It is required. I mean, in CPRS and the other CI approaches, you are supposed to write not every word. You cannot write every word, but the keywords in your lesson, the keywords that are the backbone of the story you are creating. Then yes, I usually write them on the board. And there's a skill of walk before you talk. Before you pronounce that word in your story, you have to go to the board, point at it, and then pronounce it, and then say it to the student.
Yeah, I understand.
For me, most of my students most of them have actually learned the alphabet, especially the French ones, which I guess are the same, because I guess the difference. I never taught students who never knew the alphabet, because they have already studied it in French, 3 years prior. So, but I never taught them those who never studied it. But even then, I wouldn't teach it the way it is presented now.
Yeah, of course.
Or just the issue is just with the writing. That's all.
Yeah, but that'll come with time. Yeah, I knew you wouldn't teach the alphabet the traditional way. No, I'm curious because, so yeah, I understand what you meant, that you write words down in the whiteboard or whatever it is, and as you're saying them, you're pointing to them, so they know what.
Yeah.
Right. And
I know a teacher who's I know a teacher who can. I'm not sure you know him. Fadi, he's a TPRS teacher. Fadi Abu Ghosh is in Arabic. Fadi, he's a Jordanian teacher in the USA. Okay. So he teaches teaches Arabic to. Here it is the opposite. He teaches Arabic to American students, to the Americans. So for him it takes about. He said that it takes him about 3 weeks to teach the writing of Arabic, like the Arabic alphabet. Okay. 3 weeks. Yeah, but without the writing, he just it doesn't take time. So he just writes everything in English, like the way it is. What's the not the translation? There's a word where he writes how it is pronounced.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. Transliteration. So he just writes the Arabic word, but in Roman letters.
Okay.
But in his classes, he teaches the whole thing. He teaches the Arabic because it's not that you can, but it's better if you want to learn a language. Why not also learn its alphabet? Unless it is a very difficult language, and always it depends on your goal with language.
Right.
You may not even need the writing; you just need to speak it and understand it.
Of course. Yeah, but it's just like I personally love to. When I'm learning a language, I love to read books if I can to know more about the culture. So I'm just interested in that part. And yeah, what was his name again? Because I think it's actually interesting.
Yeah, he teaches Arabic. I'm going to write it on the chat, or I could will later.
Let me know later, and I'll try to reach out to him to ask, because that's a topic that I'm interested in, because like again, getting back to the alphabet, I remember. So my point again, as everything we're talking about, is not that it's not important, it's that you don't need to consciously teach it the way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like this is A, B, because I remember. So I'm learning Russian now. I remember when I started watching like comprehensible input videos on YouTube on different channels, and obviously it's a different alphabet, so I didn't understand.
Yeah.
I remember in one of the videos, one of the lessons, the teacher had a map of Europe. And I noticed as she spoke, she talked about France and Finland. And I noticed the first letter in both those countries it's sort of like a circle with a stick. So I was like, so that's the sort of the equivalent of an F sound. You know what I mean? So I realized, but my brain realized and so on. So I'm like, so that's the F sound. So what I mean is I was learning the alphabet subconsciously again, without having to go through all the alphabet letters and consciously remembering F, you know what I mean?
Yeah, there is Bill Van Patten have talked about this bootstrapping. I'm not sure it is the same idea. It's like when the brain, the bootstrapping is most evident. It is most evident when you are teaching and pointing to each word, especially in reading. So when they are reading and then you point to each word, your brain will make borders of each word. It's like so the same here, like you said in Russian. When you see it and you hear it at the same time, then your brain will know that this is one sound, that's another sound. I guess this is how you would learn even the alphabet.
Right.
I mean, like the new alphabet here. So I guess here, especially, I would say don't focus. I mean, for most, I wouldn't focus on the alphabet at the first time. I was just listen and try to understand.
Yep.
I know there aren't that many teachers who use CI. I mean, Russian teachers. I know one in YouTube. I don't remember her channel. but I would focus most on understanding the language, getting acquiring it as much as I can, and then go back and learn the alphabet. I guess then it would be much easier, because you have the words, you have the sound in your brain, and then you are just pinning down all the sounds like in writing.
Yeah, and the bottom line, I think, is the brain is actually acquiring the alphabet along with the language on its own.
Exactly, yeah.
Without you even realizing, which is the cool part. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess reading, the benefit of reading, as Stephen Krashen states, is as in phonic awareness, comes from reading, not from learning the alphabet. Yeah. When you are reading, your brain will pick up all the sounds and all the letters. Yeah. Then, when it comes to writing, that's a skill that you can teach it consciously. You cannot just teach it like it's something that you see. So it's hard to teach it subconsciously. But at least there should be the students should have like a basic level of the language, and then go back to the writing.
Definitely. Yeah, I have a feeling it's just like speaking, that you just need a lot of input until you're ready to start writing in the language. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And most readers are good writers, as they say.
Exactly. Surprisingly, yeah. No, but but the most important thing that we want to say with this example is, unfortunately, we don't need to consciously control the process. Like at any point, like the brain, if you follow the right principle, the brain is doing its thing. I don't know how it works, here inside, but it works, right? So
it's not that we don't have to, you just can't, we just cannot do it.
Yeah.
If we were to analyze a language, there are thousands of words. So imagine learning every single word, like you just can't. You may feel that you have learned everything, but you actually haven't. You just learned some in school, but then you started reading and writing, and then the other words just came along.
Yeah, you've memorized things, but that doesn't mean you're gonna be able to actually use them. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, and how about your own journey as a language learner? Are you learning other language now? Looking to learn any new language?
Yeah. Sometimes I just want to go back and acquire now French, like I did with English, because I learned it, but I still haven't acquired it yet. I've acquired some, accidentally, and now my main focus is in Spanish, because most CI teachers are Spanish teachers, and most of the material they provide for teachers is in Spanish. And sometimes they write even in Spanish, and then I feel like an outsider, outsider. So I feel like foreign to them. That's why I want to learn Spanish. I had a very brief experience in university with one teacher, which I only attended, I guess, one session or two sessions. She was very basic, very traditional in her way of teaching. And not last year, but I guess in 2020, I started acquiring it with Blaine Ray. He has a series of most of his lessons are on YouTube. So I started just rewatching his videos, and I actually learned and acquired a lot. So, but I'm struggling. Most of the time it is about the journey, not the journey. Most of the time it's just how to get started. Not the material is there, how to learn is there. You have everything you need, but how do you have the will to start? Even if it is like a good teacher. Sometimes you cannot, but imagine you have Blaine Ray as your teacher. I had him as a teacher in his lessons on YouTube, but I did follow him for about a month. I watched most of his videos, not most of them, just I guess a couple of them in 1 month. 1 month, and then when I got back to teaching, it was very busy, so I couldn't take the time.
Yeah, you need, at the end of the day, obviously, you need comprehensible input, but you need
Exactly.
time is important.
Time for
right?
yeah.
I mean,
There's a Spanish teacher, Unlimited Spanish, Oscar Pias, I guess. I'm not sure you know him.
I think I do.
He teaches Spanish using CPRS.
Mhm.
He learned English from AG Hog. I think so. He learned English from AG Hog, and then he started his course in Spanish. And I know other teachers who started their courses in their own languages using CPRS because they learned English from AG Hog.
Mhm.
I know at least three in Italian, in Polish, Japanese. It was course made by AG Hog's wife. AG Hog is an American. He's married to a Japanese woman who created the course in Japanese.
And she's got a channel on YouTube, or?
Sorry?
She's got a channel on YouTube, or?
No, I don't know if it is on YouTube, but in YouTube it's just some videos, but it is mostly listening and reading. So I guess you would have to go to their website.
Yeah, but there's more and more projects online and for different languages, which is great. Yeah.
It's not, I guess, for the thing I love about AG Hog and his way of teaching, which is CPRS, and I mean his courses, that they are very basic yet very powerful. Just listening, reading, to a lot of questions. Sometimes he discusses some of the cultural aspects of mentioned in his lessons, and that's it for him. And it actually worked very well for me. And I know it has worked for so many people who have said that it helped them. Which for me, it's been 5 years. I've been trying to my mission here in Algeria. As I told you before, I'm the only teacher here in Algeria who's teaching using CPRS. There are other teachers who know about it from me, but they are not using it because because they are teaching in public schools, in private schools, and they are required to teach in a certain way, the traditional way.
Yeah.
But now I'm teaching freely. Wherever I go, it's very hard for me to adapt to teaching the other way, because when I teach it the traditional way, I feel like I'm a loser. I'm a bad teacher.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Yeah. That's the thing with when you're teaching in a school setting.
It's like you are teaching math and physics and.
Yeah. But I've talked about it as well. I'm not an expert in that part, but I'm sure even math and physics, they could be taught a different way as well. But that's another thing.
Yeah.
But what I mean is there's so many bumps along your way when you're teaching in the school setting, because you have to deal with curriculums, with a board of directors. You need a specific code. Don't make any sense. We know, but still, yeah. But it's good that you're, at least some teachers already know. Some teachers in Algeria already know about comprehensible input and so on. So we're just trying to spread the word as much as we can.
Yeah, I would guess maybe there are maybe 20 teachers who know about TPRs, I guess. And they all heard it, know about it from me. And I still have a long way to go in promoting TPRs, because when I say TPRs, not just TPRs, I mean other CI approaches, because I know it is the way that language should be taught. I'm not asking you to teach using TPRs, solely using TPRs in all the techniques presented in TPRs, but at least I have to know the principles that it is based on, how languages are acquired, everything that's concerning that is concerned about language.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, comprehensible input. That's the key to the entire process.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the key ingredients. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it also takes time sometimes because I always talk about the fact that I don't blame, for the most part, I don't blame teachers, but
Exactly. Yeah.
the approach, because I'm sure a lot of teachers feel like there's something wrong with it, with the traditional way. I mean, of course, but they just don't know any alternative, because when they were students themselves, that's all they got. Then they went on to college to study to become a teacher, and the way they were taught to become a teacher was to teach the traditional way again. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They
don't know much. They don't know better.
Yeah, the entire experience revolves around the traditional way. So it's hard to make the switch, actually, but
yeah, and for most teachers, I guess most teachers are very busy. I mean, teaching. So as you said, I cannot blame a teacher for not knowing about a certain method. I would blame the school they were trained at. And as I said, most teachers are busy, so busy they cannot go back, go to YouTube, find new ways of teaching. It's very hard because once you become a teacher, you are usually most of the time you are only using what you have been taught, unless you go to trainings in the summer. But I wouldn't, for the most part, the blame is never on them.
Yeah, exactly. It's the system, the approach, and yeah.
Yeah, but at the end, I guess it is the job of teachers. I mean, the job of teachers to help other teachers, and I guess communities are very important in that way, because for example, when you have groups for teachers like the NCPRS FLT teacher group, the CI liftoff group, all the CI groups. For me, I have learned so much from those groups, because whenever you have a question, you just ask it, because you have a problem that another teacher has found a solution to. That teacher also has a problem that you have found a solution to, and I guess that's the most important thing, is that from those groups you are always learning. Most of the professional development teachers that teachers need come from groups.
Yeah, yes,
I would never wait for administrators and legislators to change anything, because most of the times they don't understand anything. They are just something that has worked maybe sometimes in the past. They're just passing it on. They don't. There was a study. I'm not sure of the specifics of the study, and even maybe the number, the number that was presented. I guess in the U.S. there was 6% of teachers who had proper training of second language acquisition. They had proper teaching of second language acquisitions, and most of those teachers are teachers who have worked together. They have learned it from each other.
Yeah.
I guess it was he said it was 6%. I cannot give you the correct number. I can go back to his podcast maybe and get the right number. It was published on a journal. We are the experts, I guess. It was the paper.
Yeah, but I get.
Anyway, so there is a huge issue when it comes to teacher training.
Yeah, you mean that you don't have the freedom to?
No, I mean I studied in a teacher's college, so we were taught on how to teach. Actually, to be honest, we only had 2 modules in the last 2 years out of 5 years where we were taught on how to teach. Most of the time it was just literature and civilization and things that as teachers we don't necessarily need. I mean, what we needed was more training, was more practice. But most of the time it was they would just give you a course on the approaches, different approaches. They never mentioned TPRS. They mentioned TPR, then just like one-time course, and then it's over, and then they go back. They go next to something. So for me, if I were to summarize my experience in high school, and not in high school, university, if we were to jam everything that I learned, I could just fit it in one book. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I remember when I read Bill Van Patten's book, while we are on the topic, I learned so much more than I learned in 5 years. Like in just 119 pages, I learned so much better than I had in university. And I guess it is the same case in most teachers college. I'm sure there are other colleges that are very like rigorous and very training focused, but still, there are most of the approaches that are presented there are very obsolete and traditional.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And most of the times they import techniques and ideas from education in general, and just make you use it in your language classes, which is wrong, I guess.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think trying to do it within the traditional education system, it's a lost battle.
Yeah.
Stuff. Okay. And anything else that comes to your mind? Anything that we forgot to talk about, or any other thoughts on language acquisition?
I guess for me, for example, I see so many things that are like presented as ideas and tips to students. For example, the thing that's not that I hate, but it's very not depressing. I mean, as a student who had good grades, I don't understand why many teachers focus on using dictionaries all the time. It's like you have the textbook and you have the dictionary. I mean, I don't remember the last time like I opened a dictionary and I learned the word. Most of the time I just picked up all the words, not most of the words from movies and TV series and from A.G. Hogue of his lessons. And I remember in high school, like whenever I had time, when I had free time, I just go to dictionary, open dictionary and just read words. But then I forgot everything like I read in that dictionary, because you may learn it, but language is a means. It is a context, not a single word. So you have to immerse yourself in the context, in that experience, not immerse yourself in a dictionary. If you want to immerse yourself in a book, bring a book and read it, given that it is in your level.
Yeah.
I remember one thing when it comes to grammar. I mean, I had so many things in my epiphanies, or if you will, where I realized something about language, about how language should be taught and how it should be learned. I remember in second year in high school, I had a small notebook. And I was writing sentences. And I always wondered when to use verb to be and when to use verb to have. Sometimes I would say David are happy, or David have happy, David is happy. I ask myself these questions, and I know if I were to go to a textbook, I would find the answer. But then, so I was writing so many sentences, and then later that year I discovered about A.G. Hogue, and I started like watching movies. And at the end of the year, like at the end of second year, I opened that notebook and I was like reading those sentences. I asked myself, did I write these sentences? Am I stupid to write these sentences? Like I was asking myself, how? And I don't remember anything. Like I don't remember that I studied the correct ways and during that year. So along the way, I picked up the correct way on how to use those verbs.
Yeah, you were just trying to consciously learn structures that you weren't ready for yet, because you didn't get enough comprehensible input yet. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
trying to find a shortcut to put it into simple words, right?
Yeah, and there was one time with my students. I remember this time. So we were creating a story about a horse So that horse got his leg broken.
Mm.
So I was creating a story with my student, and then so one of the suggestions was to take I say him because his name was, I guess, was John or Michael. I don't remember.
Yeah,
So yeah, the main suggestion was to take him to a veterinarian. And then I remember, like, when I want them to say veterinarian, I was doing something that I know. I'm teaching and I'm aware of what's happening. So I asked them, repeat veterinarian. They they all had it wrong. They would say veti. I can't even make it wrong because they have it the right way. So they struggled to pronounce it the right way. Then I told them, look, because it's circling questions, a lot of questions and answers. I said to them, look, whenever I ask a question whose answer is veterinarian, you just need to answer vet, which is a short form of veterinarian. But sorry, I guess someone is. So whenever as I said to them, whenever I ask a question that, oh, come on, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so let me go back. So I was teaching them a story. In that story, we were talking about a horse who got his leg broken. So the suggestion was to take him to a veterinarian. So I asked my student to repeat the word veterinarian, but they struggled. They couldn't pronounce it. Like, they couldn't repeat after me. And then, so I told them. I don't know why everyone is calling me now. So I asked them, whenever I ask a question where the answer is veterinarian, you just have to say vet. But when I say it, I have to say the whole word, like veterinarian. And then we went on with the story, a lot of questions and answers, using the word veterinarian, always talking about the horse and the veterinarian. And at the end of the session, I asked them, repeat after me, veterinarian. They just repeated it like the right way. They heard it so many times in the story, they didn't even pronounce it. They pronounced it the first time wrong, and then at the end they just got it. That really made me believe more in CPRS.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's how it works. Like you said, they just listen to the word so many times that naturally they were able to produce it the right way. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. All right. So that was great, Khoudir. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Like you said, I'm trying to spread the word as much as I can. Trying to interview people from different countries with. We all have the same basic ideas, right? But
exactly, yeah.
We'll have different nuances or different points of view or different little things that we use in our classes that might help other people, or your experience as a student yourself, something that made you realize that can be done a different way and things like that, right?
Yeah, I guess, when you have different guests from different countries, it helps confirm all the ideas that you present in your podcast, because some students are afraid to take that leap of faith and jump into the unknown of just listening and reading and just and not worry about the results and not worry about the grammar. But when you hear it from different people from different countries in different languages, it means that something works here. So I should as a student, as a learner, I should try it. Why not give it a try?
Exactly. Yeah. And then I've been to a couple of workshops, like teacher workshops, and I remember I think everyone there spoke at least 3 languages, and I don't think it's a coincidence.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you, Khoudir. Like I said.
Thank you.
And
this was a pleasure, having. This is my first time in a podcast, but I'm sure I'm looking forward to talking to you soon. Not even if it's not a podcast, just like a one-to-one. Yeah.
Sure. You did wonderfully. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.